here's a kid that most people would look at and think, criminal, young kid with his pants around his butt, and all that. No potential, on charges, no home, no food. Look at that. I mean, he was, he was stabbed once, and he's seen people murdered in front of him. I mean, he lived in a shelter. Like, that's a crazy life.
I walked into the office, and they're like, "Well, this is great. This is going to be your PAC program instructor." And, you just told me you could be open with him, always know that he'll be there for you.
And listen, in the end, it's against the law to hit another person. And it doesn't matter how old you are, it's just not accepted.
Craig is truly committed to the youth that he works with. He is one of the most effective coaches we have. So it's with that understanding and the skill of a coach that makes him a game changer for the youth that he has worked with.
He has this instant rapport with them because of the background and where he's been in his own life. There's no faking it with Craig. Like, he is who he is, and he lets them know that he can totally relate to where they're coming from, and that's something that other coaches may have to work a little harder on. Craig has that instant credibility and rapport.
Do me a favor, can you call me tomorrow during the day, and can you find out who her judge is?
I was always a victim of violence growing up. So one day I instinctively, I guess, reacted to that violence and learned in a very bad situation that people will leave me alone if I'm violent. So I essentially became everything that I hated about life. I was tired of it, and I didn't want to be that person anymore. So I went to coach school, right? I got the highest recorded grade ever at the academy. I think it was a 99.9. It's the one thing I can do that supports another person and makes it completely unique and all about them. Yeah, that's who you are. Empowerment, confidence, achievement. I'm gonna change that. Can I change that?
Okay.
What can I change that to? Give me another word.
Responsibility.
How about, can I offer a word?
Okay.
Accomplishment.
Accomplishment.
Because everything you set out to do and everything you wanted to, you did it.
I say to the guys straight up, I say, what do you want to do? What do you want out of life? How important is that to you? And how hard are you willing to try to get it?
Craig is an amazing person, like a father figure or a brother or a best friend. I felt like I could tell him anything.
All this kid needed was someone to give him a chance. I mean, look at him, look at his face. No, it wasn't a studio. When I hear him talk, how smart he is. When I see the motivation in his eyes, the happiness in his eyes. That young man you see there is not the young man I met.
It's after 3 o'clock. It has been, as we've been saying, a violent 24 hours in this city. Police continue to investigate 3 shootings and a stabbing. They all happened yesterday with each other. One of those shootings happened outside Bendale Business and Technical Institute in the city's East End. A 16-year-old recovering from gunshot wounds to his chest, the victim, and another 18-year-old have both been charged by police in connection with this incident. The violent spree has once again raised questions about youth crime in our city. Craig Trohill works with young people involved in the criminal justice system. He's on the line now to talk about how we hope to not have that conversation again down the road. Craig, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
When you hear about things like what happened yesterday outside of a school in the East End of Toronto, what goes through your mind?
It's horrific. It's a terrible situation that is critical that we look at immediately.
You're involved in looking at it through work with people involved in the criminal justice system. You are now coaching, I gather, a couple of people who are in that system right now. What do they tell you about what they're concerned about out on the streets of Toronto?
Well, the last thing, I know that it's encouraging to get them to do schoolwork and all those things, but the main focus that I have with my clients is the surviving the school day, the route to school, the lunch hour, just being around the school and after school, coming home. Literally survival.
What do you mean by that?
Life and death, literally. Whether or not they're going to get attacked on the way to school, even killed. Sometimes even, should they be arming themselves to go to school? Are they going to survive school? Will they make it home that night? What routes should they avoid? It's hard to imagine that kind of a life.
Do they tell you about how these sorts of fights begin? I mean, it sounds almost random.
It seems to it's becoming less and less of a big deal, so to speak, that the altercation is so minimal, and yet the violence is so escalated afterwards. It could be something as easy as a look, or literally just being in the wrong place with the wrong person at the wrong time.
So when they tell this to you, and these are people who I suppose ultimately want to end up doing the right thing, and you're somebody who wants to help them do the right thing, how do you tell them about ways to get out of that cycle, ways to get out of that system?
I offer the perspective of hope and possibility and forgiveness without judgment. I mean, these kids are struggling to find their path and find forgiveness for things that they may have done and how to overcome these obstacles. And given the time to explore and the encouragement to do so, it just seems to work.
So what does that look like? What does that sound like? I mean, when you're talking to one of these kids, what do you tell them?
Well, that's the thing, is I really don't tell them things. The last thing these kids want to hear is what I think they should be doing and how to do it. It's important that I discover and explore with them what is possible, what are their options. I mean, these kids aren't stupid, they're smart kids. So given the space of trust and non-judgment, you'd be surprised what they can come up with and what they can then apply with encouragement.
But they need some sort of encouragement to get out of that cycle. I'm just trying to figure out how they can make that step. If they haven't been able to do it in the past, what it is that you do to facilitate them taking that step.
Well, a lot of asking questions, a lot of acknowledgement, understanding what makes them work, who they're being, get them to understand the impact of the choices they make on them, their community, everything around them, and what it gives them. What's the value of a different life? I mean, no one's even really asked them that question. A lot of my clients say, no one's asked me what would be the value of changing my life, just that I need to change it.
And this change is something that you've gone through yourself.
Yes, it is.
So what happened with you? What did you need to change from?
Well, I was not unlike these kids. I've never killed anybody, but I have lived an interesting life, and the most important thing for me was to understand the impact of who I was being, not only on my life, but on the lives of my family and my friends and the community that I lived in as a whole.
And what was it, again, that managed to get you to realize that? Because a lot of kids might be in the same situation. They might be thinking that what they're doing isn't particularly fulfilling, and they might want to do something about it. But it's difficult to make that move.
It is extremely difficult, and I guess if anybody was listening, I would say it's possible. No matter what it seems, no matter how many obstacles are against, and no matter how many challenges needed to be overcome, it is possible. It is doable. And when I was in a position, I had just had enough of the life I was living. I was noticing that the choices I was making, what it was giving me in my life, and I took responsibility for what my life was then going to look like.
Do you use that experience with the kids that you're dealing with, essentially to tell them that you've gone through the same thing?
Yes, I do, and it gives them hope to see somebody that has made it. It gives them hope.
And gives you, I suppose, some sort of credibility as well. You're not just another authority figure talking down to them.
No, I'm not a police officer. I'm not a judge. I'm not a probation officer. I am a true ally to these people.
Is money the solution to this?
I know that funding is important for programs, and I know that money does get things done. But what I think is important is for people to understand that it is possible to get out and do something. A lot of the stuff that I do is volunteer. A lot of people have huge hearts and huge ideas, and all they need to do is really just step up and acknowledge themselves and get out there and enough talking. While we're talking, these kids are murdering each other, and they're getting younger every day.
Best of luck with the work that you do, Craig. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Craig Trohill is a coach with the PACT Life Plan Coaching Program. For more information about the work that he does, you can go to their website, pactprogram.ca.